All right, what's up, guys? Today, talking like goal setting, aren't we?
Yeah.
A lot of people they got goals, they want to do things, they want to achieve things, and for some reason, they just never take action.
Yeah, I think that some people just kind of get that analysis paralysis. They
Perfectionist paralysis, analysis
just
paralysis.
think, and they really think so hard about the whole process, and they want to prepare, and they want to be ready, and they don't want to fail. And I get all that stuff. I really do, because I've been in the same situation. But after you do a few projects, or you start a business or two, little by little, as you get into creating things that you wanted to do in your life, you start to realize that you're never going to be prepared. You're never going to be, you never have the answers. All the data that you take in, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that just doesn't fit your situation. Maybe the money, maybe the location where you're at. There's just so many things that are always different. So you're going to learn on the fly.
No matter how much you prepare, perfect, you learn more by starting than you ever do sitting there and paralysis analysis.
Yeah.
And then they say if they waited for the perfect car, we'd still be waiting for a car.
Yeah.
If we waited for the perfect iPhone, we'd still be waiting for an iPhone.
Yep.
And by releasing the iPhone, they learned so much more by releasing it, putting it to the public, getting feedback, and then adapting, opposed to preventing it for another 5 years and trying to perfect that thing.
Yeah, and that's not to say that iPhone just decided to come out with an iPhone one day and came out with it a couple weeks later. They put in the work.
They pushed it as far as they possibly could before, hey, we need to take some type of action.
Sure, and I'm not saying just go and try and start a business without learning anything about business, or go try and invest in real estate without reading any real estate books and preparing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying comes a point where you're hearing the same information, you understand the lingo, you're now it's time to let's go. Now it's time to get on the road and take the next step.
Start failing.
Yeah, start failing.
And understand that you are going to make mistakes.
Yeah, you're going to make mistakes, and you want to limit the mistakes, but they're going to happen. So
they say even with video, YouTube, your first video is going to suck. It's always going to be bad.
Yeah.
No matter how much you think it's not going to be, you're going to look back and I can't believe I was so monotone. It was so boring.
Yeah.
The quality was so bad. But you had to start to know to move forwards. Yeah. So I think a big mistake a lot of people make is they just don't set goals. And then their environment, the people they hang out with, kind of suppress their goals. How many, probably not so much for you now, but how many times have you heard, oh, you could never do that, or that's not possible, or you shouldn't do that, or you should just get a secure job? And I feel like a lot of people listen to those naysayers more than they should listen to themselves and take action.
I agree. And maybe they don't just listen to them directly, but they let it seep in. And
it weighs on you, right?
Yeah, and little by little, you're maybe I can't do that. Or maybe there's a different way. Or, then you start to question yourself. And that's what starts that whole kind of cancerous process. And all of a sudden you're months go by and you're I just changed my mind. Did you change your mind? Or did you just let other people influence your
100%
feelings,
right.
So that's a big deal. I mean, I could say that, even in little things, when me and my wife wanted to move to Vegas, before we were married, we were together, we want to move to Vegas. We lived in California, in a small town in Lancaster, California, shout out. And we were I was a bartender there at the time, making great money for working very little hours. It was a fun job. But we were we want to move to Vegas. I think we can take it up to the next level. We can move out here. We can, in my mind, I was thinking, man, we could both be making $70,000 each, and we could be doing really well. This is me. This is, my young thinking at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember, you start sharing with people, we're going to look at houses in Vegas. And this is in 2009. So the whole recession had just happened, where all the housing had fallen, basically was at the bottom of 2009. So we looked at it as an opportunity. We could get a really nice house for a good price. We were we could move out there. We could start a different life. We could make more money. And as soon as we started kind of putting that out there, I mean, from different sources, she would hear stuff oh, you can't do that, someone told me this, and then I would hear stuff you can't just you can't just move out there and buy a house, you just can't do that. I'm what do you mean?
Have you done it? Have you tried?
Well, but these people are older, they already have their house.
Yeah.
But, so you start to think what are we? I was you know what? Even if it doesn't work out, we can always come back. That was my thought. It was like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
What's the worst that
We
can
go out
happen,
there
right?
and everybody's right, but we learned a lot and we come back. Big deal, right?
Yeah.
So then you fast forward and, you know, in my mind, I had us making like, you know, 75,000 each, 70,000. I was like all excited about that. When we got here, you know, my wife ended up getting a job that made way more than that. So it was like crazy, you know, to the point where she was like, you know, I think I should just work and maybe you just like think about not bartending and doing something else. And I was like, awesome, you know?
Even better.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've always been a good team, but the choices we made together, that we kind of just tuned everybody out, you know, because of course family didn't want us to move. They thought it was a bad idea. I can't believe you're moving to Vegas. Like, it's so horrible for kids and this and that. And, you know, like, turns out, like, the life that we have here now with our kids has been way better than the life they would have had there. Oh, 1,000 times better.
Yeah,
so
you can't live your life for somebody else, can you?
No, you can't. And you got to be willing to kind of like take the risk. We had no family out here. We didn't know anybody, you know? So
yeah, it's when so in Australia, I'm 29. I get asked to be in a show on the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
So I'm just small town, and all of a sudden I tell people I'm thinking about doing it. Why would you want to do that? That's silly. Why would you? I was like, I'm literally getting sent to another country for the way I look.
Yeah.
To be in a show on the Las Vegas Strip, to be paid for it.
Yeah.
We're on billboards around the city.
Yeah.
But why would you want to do that? I'm like, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Like, what a crazy experience. What a memory you got when you're 60 to tell your grandchildren.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you how many people. I didn't get one positive comment when I decided to come to the States.
I know, and doesn't that help kind of clarify some of your friends? Because I had like one, maybe I had like one friend, probably maybe two, that were like excited for me, like genuinely like excited.
So I didn't have
miss you,
anyone.
but I'm excited. Yeah, and so, but that clarified a lot of things, like, you know, right away, like, you know,
And sometimes I find like with the fitness, the modeling, the fitness comps, all that, like what I did back in Australia, is sometimes you just got to do you for you and not. I feel like a lot of people wait for praise or always gratification or being validated by their friends, and they don't take action until they get that. And what I've realized, the more I've kind of succeeded and grown with things, the more I realize, like, hey, I'm doing this by myself and I'm doing it for me. Because even back home, I was like front page of the newspaper, I was winning modeling comps, I was doing photo shoots, and nobody said anything. Not a single comment, not a single message, not a single call. When I would talk to my friends, nobody would say anything. And there's no way you can miss it.
Yeah.
And then I literally get sent to a different country, nobody said anything. And then that's just a little fitness realm. That's so small. But you just begin to realize that, hey, you just got to do you for you. Does this make me happy? Do I want to do it? And unfortunately, most people aren't driven. They're not striving towards goals. And you got to try to step up and do it for yourself. And then eventually you will attract the right people. But it is hard. It's very hard to find the right people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I started realizing too, because, you know, you have to become somebody else when you step out of who you currently were, right? So like your current identity, being in Australia, being that person, and when you decided that you're going to move to Vegas, all of a sudden everyone's identity around you has to like reconfigure, like they have to question themselves because you're going to go be something else. Does that make sense?
That's exactly it.
And so I think that's the part that gets difficult, because you have to like kind of stretch who you currently are and become the next person that you want to be. Even though you don't really know exactly what that's going to be, you just know that you're going to go try and see what happens.
Want to get a little bit further. And the example comes to mind is you got a couple that have been together for 10 years, you're both overweight. And all of a sudden you want to start losing weight because you want to become healthier. Mm-hmm. And now your wife's like, why does he want to lose weight? We've been the same for 10 years. Is it because he's unhappy with me? Is he trying to look for a new girl?
Yeah.
She or she starts to question himself on the relationship security. But it's not like, oh, maybe I should get healthy, or maybe we should get healthy together. And there's always some reason for holding you back, because now you're making me feel uncomfortable because you want to grow. And that's just weight loss.
Yeah.
That's not business. That's not anything else. But do you kind of know what I mean by that?
Yeah, there's that whole it's
insecurity or something, right?
It's the lobsters in the trap whole series.
Yeah.
Right? You've probably read that before, or like a bunch of lobsters when you get them inside of a bucket or a big trap. They all tend to like just hang out there. They don't jump out of the bucket. They don't run out of the trap. And if one lobster starts to try to get out, the other ones pull it back down. And it's like this weird thing. Like you can't do that. Like we're here. This is what we're doing. This is our cosmos. This is our world. You can't just go and take off and do whatever you want. And I just feel like society and people
is like that.
And I don't think it's a negative, like they mean to be like that. They're trying to protect who they currently are, because it makes them, they have to question like, well, am I healthy enough? Am I doing enough? Am I sexy enough? And whatever, like whatever insecurities they have start to kind of rise to the surface, because they have to. And
sometimes it's not even that. It could be a protection thing. Like your parent, I don't do that because I want you to be safe. I want you to be secure. I don't want you to fail that business. So it could be like, hey, I want to hold that person back for myself, but also I'm worried about you too. And I feel like with that comes, I feel like as you grow and you start to become different, rather than like someone driving that Mercedes or someone driving that Ferrari, like, oh, he's lucky, he inherited it, he must have a big loan. You start to like, hey, how'd you get that car?
Yeah.
You start to ask intelligent questions.
Like that TikTok guy who goes up to everybody with the...
Exactly.
He's like, hey, what do you do for a living? He's so funny. I mean,
how cool is that, right?
And he's done so many things now just from that little act. And he was probably just curious from the get-go about it. I'd like to ask him, like, what's the reason, what got him started to just doing that? I guarantee he was just curious. About like, what do these people do?
2 ears and one mouth, right?
Yeah.
Most successful people are happy to share their experience.
Yes.
But it's same as the gym. Someone in really good shape is more than happy to tell you how they did it.
Totally. Unless they did it not in an actual...
But even that way, I feel like there's still like... I feel like if you get the relationship, they're still okay to talk about it, especially now it's social. But the problem is everyone's ego is too big. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to step back and to ask that question.
Yeah.
If you see someone with a very successful business, is your ego, can you leave that ego behind to ask intelligent questions so you can learn from them? We can now.
Yes. Yeah.
Could I do that in my 20s? Probably not, because I was probably like, oh yeah, and that's all the limitation, that's all the environment that I grew up with that made me that way, that I then had to break away from.
Yeah.
And that's where reading comes into it.
Totally. And then you start to realize, like, man, like asking, you got all these people that are writing these great books that they didn't have to write that book. They're successful and they're happy and they can be on an island in Fiji hanging out. Like, they don't need to share all those things with you, but they want to leave more than just they don't want to just take. Right now they're trying to like give. Yeah. Because that makes you feel better than taking. And
yeah, like most people got like Andrew Carnegie, right?
Yeah.
Anyone with like Bill Gates. It's happened generation after generation. Once you get to certain levels, like, what else is it? I don't need any more money. Maybe I can provide value and help somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you just rise to a different, stage in your life where you're like, okay, I have enough. Everything's abundant. Now what? Okay, now let's move the needle, right? Let's really move it forward and do the best we can and help people and all that stuff. However, I do have my, thoughts on certain things. Some people should, I don't want to say stay in their lanes a little bit, but like when it comes to Bill Gates, it's hard to take health advice from Bill Gates. You look at Bill Gates, you're like, the dude clearly doesn't work out or do anything. I mean, I would like to know what he even eats every day. Does he eat his fake squirted, meat or whatever that he's trying to make? And like, is that what he eats all day? Because if that's what he eats all day, he doesn't look very good. It doesn't look like he's getting enough protein and all that stuff. Those kinds of things I'm always curious about. Like,
yeah, it's listening to the right people in the right industries.
Yeah, like if he was explaining to me like, hey, this is what we should be doing for computers and for the next step of the internet, then I'd be like way more interested. But when they're talking about health, I'm like, well, I don't even see anything that you do that's health other than the words you're saying to me. Like, we don't see him working out or doing anything. Or
another big believer is you wouldn't go to a fat person trainer for weight loss advice.
Totally.
Don't go to a bright financial planner on financial advice. You seek out the people who are doing, and seek out people who you want to be like.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins says this a lot. He goes, we like people like ourselves or people we want to be like.
100%.
And they're the people that you kind of want to reach out to for their lane.
Yeah.
I don't talk religion. I don't talk politics. Therefore, no one's ever going to ask me questions about that.
Yeah.
But they may ask me questions about things I know because that's what I put out there.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So I do think that's important, you know. So give back, but make sure you're giving back in a way that's quality for people, you know.
What's some books that you have read that kind of help with that goal setting, taking action, not caring about other people's opinions, understand that you're going to fail.
Okay.
Failing's only failing when you give up.
Maybe not even a book, but just audio, because there's a lot of audio books that he has released. I mean, he's got years of content, but I would say the best place to start that's just proven, tried and true, he's been around for a long time, is Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
Anything by Jim Rohn.
He's amazing, right?
Yeah, anything by him. He's just so down to earth. He's so true. It's so, you can't really argue all the stuff he's saying.
Isn't he Tony Robbins' like mentor?
He was Tony Robbins, Darren Hardy. He was like, I mean, he's mentored countless people. I mean, the list is so long because he's been doing it for so long, and he's so good.
One thing I love about him is, like, if you wake up and you read the paper and you read all this negative stuff and you expect to have a positive day, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And Oprah Winfrey says that too. Is like, she doesn't watch the news because it's all bad stuff. It's all stuff that people want you to, all the hype to buy into.
Yeah.
If something's bad enough, especially now with social media, it's going to come up. But read positive stuff, surround yourself with positive things, positive people, and your life will become more positive.
Yep.
I don't think most people realize that.
It's probably the biggest deal, and it's
a game changer, right?
It's a game changer, and it's the hardest one to like get yourself to do, because you're like, well, I have my friends and like I'm comfortable and it's easy, and like, you know, we hang out and we go to happy hour on Fridays and you have all your time and it's just so fun, your routines and all that, and you're like, but I want this other life, and you're like, okay, well, something has to change, right? And I guarantee you that you're going to get the most results from just changing the actual group of people hanging out with. Instead of going out on happy hour on Fridays, why don't you go and meet some people that are in the industry or crushing it or doing whatever it is that you want to do?
A good, perfect example comes to mind is this podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to make new friends. I want to make more friends like myself. Therefore, I created a platform where now I literally, every week, I'm meeting 2, 3, 4 people who are like me, who are beyond me, who have got nothing but value to provide me. And it's been amazing. And it's so early.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see where this is in 2 years. I can't wait to see where I'm in 2 years from doing this.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm excited for you.
But really even cool. Us having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like, we now have an excuse to get together rather than just having a coffee. And now we're achieving something at the same time, talking the same thing we normally would talk.
Yeah, except we're sharing it.
We're providing value to other people, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. We're trying. We're trying to share the things that we've learned, and I think that's really cool. And that's what Jim Rohn talks about too. That's going back to that book, is, you know, he talks about that here and there, is like, you know, if you get a good book, read a great book, read it. And if you really like it, if there's even one little thing you get from that book, share the book. Like if it comes up or if it's with somebody, share the information, because that is how we get our society, our culture to move forward. If there's even one person that hears our talk and there's one little thing that sticks out to them, you know, that triggers some thought, that sends them in another direction, says, you know what, they're right. I just got to start. Like, I just got to get going, you know. And
it's funny you say that, because if I read a book and I get one thing, that's good.
It's worth it, right?
So worth it.
Yeah.
Hey, that book cost me $16 on Audible, $15.99 on Audible. I got one thing. That one thing is now a new tool in my tool belt.
Yep.
That I've got for the rest of my life. To me, that's priceless. If I happen to get a couple of things out of that, even better. But if it's just one thing, it's so worth it. And you literally just said that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And so Jim Rohn's a great place for all those types of, you know.
And something comes to mind too is Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. He goes, it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And that's something I think about a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why can't I do this? I'm like, well, it's not a money thing. I just need to be more resourceful. I need to reach out to more people. I need to connect with more people. I need to think outside the box. Mm-hmm. You can always make it happen, right? Yeah. It may take longer. It may be a harder journey, but you got to change that whole mindset.
Totally. And you got to change the mindset too, is like people are generally nice and generally giving, right? For the most part. Like nobody wants to be a dick. Like no one wants to be, selfish. Not, like for the most part, no one wants to be like that, right? They might end up being like that in some ways or whatever, but for the most part, people are pretty giving and caring and want to share their knowledge and share things with you and are generally good people. So like understanding that, and also simultaneously understanding that people's time is important to them, like you can figure out a way to approach different people that you want to talk to or ask questions to, and you'd be surprised at how many answers and how many things you'd get from people.
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And at first it was tricky. I felt uncomfortable with this. As soon as you ask, you're like, oh my God, they said no. They ignored me. But this one person out of 100 said this, and that was worth the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was more valuable than all these no's.
Yeah, I like sometimes
just
when
by asking.
Yeah, and sometimes when you ask, sometimes you'll get a really surprising answer. Like, man, I was thinking I wanted to ask you about that. I totally forgot. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. He wanted to ask me anyways, but totally forgot. And then I brought it up, and here it is.
Yeah.
So like, you never know where people are at and what people need and what's on their mind. So you just gotta.
If you don't ask, you'll never know, right?
Yeah.
Something comes to mind is I do a lot of DMs to businesses and people, and I was reaching out to different companies, and it was like a plane company, and I was like, had this text message. I was like, oh, I don't want to send it. I don't want to send it. Like, why would someone with a plane be interested in me?
Yeah.
And I kind of shut my eyes and just hit it.
Yeah.
This is back when I was trying to push myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
The next day I get a call. Hey, can you come up on the plane tomorrow? And then I'm flying over Las Vegas Strip, Red Rock, Mount Charleston, and the Hoover Dam in this little Cessna for work.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just don't know. And I was like, how cool is this? That's like the coolest experience ever. Now I've got that for the rest of my life. And I've been up there countless times now. So it's just become a normal part of of what I do. But if you didn't ask, it wouldn't happen. So after that, I was like, that gave me the permission. I was like, ask.
Yep.
I never kind of hold back anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need that to just suck it up, get that. You just never know.
Just send it. And you can relate that to content too and creating stuff. Like, just send it. Like, you know what? Like, for right now, like, I know we're probably not the best podcast in the world right now, but we're not going to be unless we record it, watch it, and then get better at it, right? And so like without that, that's how we're going to get better at it. Like
failing forward.
Totally. Like, there's no professional football player out there that just got better, who was just the best automatically and showed up to play the NFL. Like, they've been playing since they're probably 6 years old and, been crushing it and grinding at the gym and practicing and playing games.
Putting the time in.
Putting in the time. They made many mistakes, I'm sure, all the way up. So.
There's someone that says, he goes, it's being under the bar. Like, talks about being in the gym. It's time under the bar. Yeah. You've got to put the time in.
You do.
If you don't put the time in, you won't get better.
Yeah, and in racing, we have a thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same.
Oh,
right?
Well, it's like you can do track days, you can do test days, whatever you want to call them. You could do those all day. You're never going to get fast until you do races. There's something about being in a race
that's funny
that's going to push you to the next level. Like, there's going to be some breaking points. There's going to be some points where you might get on the throttle. There's just going to be so many things that are going to happen during a race that are going to get you to go, I don't even think I can do that. And then all of a sudden you just kind of you do it and you're like, holy crap, I couldn't do it during test days, but here I am. And then your bar raises up, like the level of where you are raises up. Then when you do your next track day, guess what? You're way faster than you were before.
And you're also being around faster people, right?
That's what I mean.
Which pushes you.
Yes.
And that's important with anything you do,
with anything.
Isn't it?
So like with starting a business, right? Or buying a business or whatever, like you can read as many books as you want and you'll get to a point where you feel like you at least understand it. That's about when it's time to go, because the next level, you're not going to learn anything else until you do it, till you're in the game. Once you're in the game, all of a sudden, like, there's going to be a bunch of things that you just didn't know, weren't ready for, and you're going to learn, and you're going to grow, and then you're going to become a master at it over time.
And then you start seeking out people doing a better job than you.
Yeah.
And they're hanging around them, ask them questions,
that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, then you start to grow.
Yeah.
What something else comes to mind as far as, like, giving you the permission and... I can't think of any books off the top. It's funny, like every book kind of tells you something similar in a different way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. There's just like, it depends on what you want to do. There's more specialized stuff that can help you get there, you know, that get your mind going. Because really, there's so many, you know, I call them rabbit holes that you can go down with, you know, if you just want to start a business or you want to buy a business, like there's plenty of business books you can read. There's plenty of good people to follow. And then, you know, there's the real estate side, there's, you know, fitness side, there's even motorsport fitness, which is specific to just drivers, you know. So there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, as far as recommending a book, I would start with Jim Rohn's stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty universal.
There's something that comes to mind is, so like, how to win friends and influence people. So it says, don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Yep.
So I never complain about anything. I never blame anybody else. Take full accountability for everything that happens. But Richard Branson says this a lot. He goes, rather than complaining, listen to someone else's complaint. So if you're complaining to me that your watch keeps falling off your wrist, I'm like, yeah, mine too, blah, blah, blah. Stop and like, why is your watch falling off your wrist? How can we fix it? Maybe that's $1 million business right there.
Yeah.
Just by shutting up and listening to people's complaints rather than joining in and, you know what I'm getting at?
Totally. It could be like one of those things where if you just listen, maybe it's as simple like adding a couple little plastic pieces that are in there that have a little bit of grip that keep it from sliding so much. And that's it. That's going to change the whole game. And now your watch is just the best sports watch on the planet.
And also, yeah.
Like,
and even with my business, like I hear the same complaints over and over, the same, I wouldn't say complaints, the same struggles over and over and over. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm hearing this. I need to pivot here because I see a niche, I see a need, therefore I'm going to adapt.
Yep.
And that's the thing with business, right? You're constantly adapting, you're constantly pivoting. You might start here, you think you're going this way, and you end up this like, I'm sure you've been there plenty of times.
Oh, 100%.
You end up like this.
We were there with when we had Vegas Rally, you know, when we were doing the rally car experience. You know, most of all our cars were manual in the beginning, and we quickly realized.
That's been a huge one, right?
Yeah, and you know, you quickly realize like, well, because you know, in my mind, I was like, well, everyone wants like an authentic rally experience, right? They want
everyone
like
wants
a
to drive
manual,
stick,
right? Yeah, they want that like real feel. Well,
which a true racing car driver would.
Yes.
But how many true racing car drivers have you got coming in?
And how many true racing enthusiasts are there out there in the entire world that come to Vegas? Well, there's a lot, but they're not. It's not enough to like make more sales.
5% here, 95% is like don't know how to drive.
They drive
stick.
an auto. Or the other thing that we quickly realize is, hey, this guy might be a super enthusiast, but his girlfriend wants to experience it, but she doesn't drive a manual.
That's a great point.
So it was like, okay, well, we need to have an auto, so we better get one right away, you know. And so getting in and doing that, and then all of a sudden you're like, we need another auto, and then it was like, man, we're gonna probably have to switch to all autos and only have one manual. So I had it all backwards, and obviously, if you think about it from my perspective, that was a big costly mistake because we missed out on so much money on the first couple of years. Because if we would have had all autos and then maybe one or two manuals, then it would have been, we would have just made more money. We would have more bookings.
And going back to, you would never, ever, ever know that unless you started
you did it.
and you made that mistake. I wouldn't even call it a mistake. I would call that like a lesson.
Yeah, a lesson.
You wouldn't know that unless you bought the cars, you put them out there, and you got feedback.
Yeah.
So that literally goes back to what we started with, doesn't it?
Yeah, you just got to kind of start and get it going. So that was a great lesson. So that and that's how it's going to be always, forever. You know, it's always going to be like that. I mean, even working out, I would imagine, like, because I watch some guys work out, and they'll do certain things that my body just can't do the same way as them, and I have to reposition it a little bit differently because maybe their forearm's a little bit longer, and the way that they're doing it, you know, doesn't quite feel the same to me. So you got to kind of know your body, you got to learn, but that stuff you're going to learn as you're kind of out there, right, doing it.
Yeah, going through I see so many people are kind of, they're doing the exercise, but the muscle isn't doing the work.
Yeah,
and
I know,
it's like it's frustrating, and you want to help people, but I'm hoping eventually one day they figure it out. Like, you see people doing a fly and their chest is sucked in, and the chest isn't doing the work. It's all biceps and forearms. And like, unfortunately, your chest is never going to grow. It's never going to get stronger because you're not doing it right.